Whether we like it or not, the good old days of vinyl records and CDs are coming to an end. Two state-of-the-art technologies made irrelevant in only a few years' time. Ever since the catalyzing introduction of the iPod in 2001, the music industry has gone almost exclusively digital. As the analog format fades into obsolescence, the internet transforms the way music is accessed and distributed, affecting both consumers and producers alike. To make sure my research was as accurate as possible, I spoke with Dan Vitco, an Emmy-awarded musician who provides background music to corporate clients and plays small gigs locally. You most likely have heard some of his work on TV before, as he's been working with popular television networks such as Nickelodeon since 1989. Considering his knowledge and experience, if anyone knows a thing or two about the music industry, it's him. Online music first became relevant after Apple's iPod took the world by storm. It was released alongside iTunes, which was an online store that allowed users to download any song for a small fee. As people jumped on the idea of online music, various other sources began to open their virtual doors to the masses. Digital formats were becoming the new standard, and the internet had begun to take over. Digital music had problems, however, particularly with piracy. While piracy existed during the analog days, digital formats were much easier to replicate and distribute illegally. Websites such as Napster allowed users to share copyrighted music, letting anyone with an internet connection download it, free of charge. While piracy seems like mostly a bad thing, many see it as an easy way to discover new artists, which would have a mostly beneficial impact. There may be some truth to this, but according to data found on the Recording Industry Association of America's website, record sales have only dropped since the rise of the internet.
From everything I've heard, it has had more of a negative impact. Let's face it, record sales, meaning CDs, and that includes downloads, are down. And in order for a band to survive, they have to gig, they have to play live.
Still, avid consumers of illegally downloaded music see it as a convenience issue rather than a cost issue. Lately, streaming services such as Spotify and Apple Music have attempted to combat this by offering unlimited free music, as long as you listen to advertisements every now and then. This isn't a perfect solution, however, as it drops the artist's revenue dramatically. Spotify in particular pays artists 1/6,000th of a cent per stream.
Nowadays, the rate's much lower if you're on Spotify or Pandora or whatever, or even the Apple streaming service. Right there, when they break it all down, you're getting pennies.
The most popular song on Spotify in 2014 was Shake It Off by Taylor Swift, which received 46.3 million streams. But it only earned Swift about $280,000. While that's a lot of money, it's only a fraction of what it could have been if listeners had purchased the track individually. As Dan said, artists have to gig and sell merchandise to make money, as their music alone typically isn't enough to earn them a sustainable revenue. While the internet has caused a harsh decline in musical revenue per sale, social media has allowed artists to more easily connect with their audiences. Have you personally utilized any kind of social media, or do you know anyone who has? And do you see that as a positive thing versus 20 years ago?
Yeah, it can be a positive thing, and used rightly, you can benefit from it. The little that I use it is when I have to play locally. I'll post it on Instagram or Facebook, and maybe send a mass email out. And usually a handful of people come out who otherwise would not have come out. So in that sense, it's paid off, and even people say, "Oh, I see notice this all the time, just haven't been able to get out yet." So as long as you're getting your word out there consistently, it's like commercials you hear on the radio or TV. You hear them all the time, so they're there, even though you don't buy the product, or in this case, they might not come out to see me all the time, but one day they will.
Social media not only allows fans to stay up to date with tours and upcoming albums, but it gives them the opportunity to get to know their idols as people, not just as a voice through a stereo. In addition to being a great way to keep in touch, it can be a great way to build up an audience. It has become so easy to get music out there that many artists and groups are having trouble being heard over all of the other aspiring musicians trying to do the same thing. Every single thing the internet has changed has, in one way or another, allowed for sharing. While this may have been a good thing when it first started happening, the internet has grown and matured, and musicians from all over are figuring out how easy it is to put up their music for anyone to hear. and in a way has created a cacophony of noise for listeners to sort through.
I think it's been negative in the respect that everyone sounds the same. I can't tell you how many pop songs I've heard. I'm hearing the same chord progressions, same songs. It's also predictable, much less creativity and variety. But for people who grew up in the analog days, who actually played and would think things through, you can use the technology and all the digital media, everything like that, to your advantage, so you can get things done more quickly, more efficiently. Just like I mentioned before, when you're doing music to picture, you can turn something around much more quickly, and you have many more sounds and tools available to do a better job more quickly. I wouldn't be able to do what 30 or 40 years ago, what I'm doing now, or what I could do would take much longer.
Modern production tools make it much easier to record and master music, but they can also make it easier to sound just like every other amateur artist on the internet. Analog recording techniques required years of training to master the art of musical production, but modern recording software can be learned in a couple of weeks.
I think overall it's been positive, but it takes some skill to make your voice unique in it, because everyone has access to these same low-cost digital tools, and it's easy for everyone to sound the same, and I think they do.
The internet has changed the music industry considerably. With internet piracy still on the rise, and streaming services such as Spotify paying mere thousands of cents to artists, it is getting progressively harder to make a living for musicians used to the traditional methods of distribution. While the digital format of music on the internet has allowed for such easy piracy, the sharing of content has created a self-generating fan base. Essentially, the internet has ignited a revolution of social media-driven marketing, which mirrors a wholesale business model. The internet has not degraded the average musician's salary directly, but eradicated the traditional methods of generating revenue. Artists who have found success in this modern evolution of the industry have generally utilized the internet as a tool for leverage, not a handicap to bear. The inextricable link between music and the internet ultimately opens new opportunities for both listener and artist, and success hinges upon a willingness to fully embrace these new realities.